Hey everybody, it's Dan Harris. Thanks for checking out our video series. Today we're going to be talking about my top 11 players that you should be looking to target in trades right now. All right, let's start with our buy low candidates, and it begins with AJ Brown. Now, Brown came back probably earlier than expected from his hamstring strain in week 5, but he disappointed with just 3 catches for 38 yards, but he still got a 27% target share, and he led the team in targets despite being on a relatively limited snap count in the game and it being a positive game script throughout. People are worried, but this is AJ Brown, guys. You don't worry about AJ Brown unless he's playing through a serious injury, and even then, you kind of trust him. Now, the Titans draw the Bills this weekend, and that means Tre'Davious White. And there are some tough matchups down the road with the Rams and the Saints, but still, people are frustrated with Brown, and there's just too long a track record of success for us to be truly worried. He's a prime buy low candidate. Next up on the buy low list is TJ Hockenson. Hockenson got off to a raging start, but still he's been quiet now for 3 straight games. The thing is, even with the offensive line issues, he's still running routes at a pretty strong clip. So yeah, the 8 catches in his last 3 games is not good, but as he gets healthier, remember he's been battling that knee injury, the targets should increase. At this point, fantasy managers sound like they're ready to move on for players like Dalton Schultz or Dawson Knox, and Hockenson should still be considered above those guys and no worse than a top 6 tight end. Next up, it's T. Higgins. Ja'Marr Chase is the receiver to roster in Cincinnati if you had to choose just one, but you don't. And Higgins is about to return excellent value at a time when his managers are really frustrated. Now, Higgins is not as explosive as Chase, but he does have a higher target share than Chase in games in which they both played together. With Joe Burrow looking healthy and the offense humming a bit, expect Higgins to get going here soon, likely this weekend against the Lions. This is a prime time to buy low before that game. Another guy to buy low on is Javonte Williams. Now, Williams produced fairly well against the Steelers, but there is frustration among fantasy managers as they wait for him to take over the full role in the Denver backfield. I mean, Williams and Melvin Gordon continue to largely split the work, but there's no doubt that Williams is and will be more effective. It's a little bit of a long game here with Williams. It's likely going to take some time, probably until the second half of the season, before he really breaks loose. But locking him in right now, before his value spikes, is the right move. Next up on the buy low list is Stefon Diggs. It's been kind of a surprisingly slow start here for Diggs, and it was especially frustrating to see him catch just 2 passes against the Kansas City defense that just hemorrhages points to opposing wide receivers. But Diggs still leads the Bills in targets, catches, and yards, and there are games coming up against the Titans, Jets, and Jaguars. With Josh Allen playing at an extremely high level, expect Diggs to pop soon and return strong wide receiver value rest of season. Last up on the buy low list is Jaylen Waddle. There is undoubtedly a buy low window for Waddle now after he did not come through against the Bucs, despite a negative game script and pretty much no other options in the passing game. But inconsistencies often come with rookie wide receivers, especially when it's Jacoby Brissett throwing them the ball. Tua Tagovailoa is on the verge of returning, and the Dolphins get the Jaguars and Falcons next. Waddle's going to begin producing, and probably soon, so getting him at a lower price is a great move. Alright, let's switch gears here and talk about some sell-high candidates, 5 in fact, and it begins with Courtland Sutton. Now, Sutton is a great player, and he's been pretty inconsistent this year. The Broncos generally have a conservative game plan and a very strong defense, so huge games from receivers probably won't be the norm. That's especially true with Jerry Jeudy likely to return within the next few weeks, which is going to further cut into Sutton's target share. Coming off a big game of 7 catches for 120 yards and a score, it's the perfect time to try to sell Sutton high. Next up on the sell high list is Myles Gaskin. This is a no-brainer if you can do it. Gaskin went from basically being droppable after carrying the ball twice for 3 yards in week 4 to a total stud in week 5, with 10 catches for 74 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air with an added 25 on the ground against the Bucs. So maybe people are totally back in, which means it's a perfect time to sell high. Now look, we just mentioned it with Jaylen Waddle, right? The Dolphins get the Jaguars and Falcons next, so maybe you do want to hold Gaskin in the short term, but That also might be a reason why this is the perfect sell high moment, with both those matchups coming and managers wanting to capitalize. Next up on the sell high list is Damien Williams. Williams filled in well for the injured David Montgomery last week, but we also saw Khalil Herbert basically split carries with him. Maybe managers who just check the box score don't realize that, and they just see Williams' production and they think, oh, he did well, great. But the Bears now face Green Bay, okay, and then though, the Bucs, the 49ers, the Steelers, then a bye, and by that point, David Montgomery is going to be back. Sell Williams high to a running back needy team. Let's talk about another Williams here as a sell high candidate, and it's JAMAAL Williams. Now, Williams is still viewed as sort of the co-RB1 in Detroit, but that's not really the case. Yeah, he still had 13 carries last week and 2 targets, but he played on just 32% of the snaps. Swift played on 74%. Remember, Swift needs to be eased into the workload a bit in the beginning of the season because he was battling that groin injury, but he's obviously fully healthy, and he should only see his role grow. Don't give Williams away, he can still contribute, but his value is not going to get much higher than it is right now. And our last sell high candidate is Antonio Gibson. This is entirely about the stress fracture in his shin. When news of the injury broke, fantasy managers were freaking out, wanting to give him away, but after a 2-touchdown game against the Saints, everyone seems pretty comforted, and that's why you should sell him right now. Look, the stress fracture is a real concern for Gibson. His long-term viability is a huge issue, and Dr. David Chow mentioned how it's something that will likely affect him later on in the season. If you're not trying to sell him as an RB1 after this big performance, you're just not capitalizing on his sell high moment. And that's going to do it for my top 11 players to target in trades for week 6 of the NFL season. Don't forget to subscribe here to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/fantasypros and follow us over at Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at FantasyPros so you don't miss any of the great content we're going to continue to pump out all season long.